Good evening from Bali, everyone. It's Hanifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. As you can see, it's nighttime over here, and I couldn't resist making this video. It's been a little while since I've made my last video, but there's been a lot of reflection and contemplation time going on through my time here. I wanted to just share with you this idea of for such a time as this, and I don't know if you recognize that quotation. It's from a biblical reference. It's Esther, I guess it's chapter 4 and section 14 or verse 14, and many of us, or some of us, use that line, and I'll thank my friend in the States who actually uses this line regularly, and we actually talk about this comment, for such a time as this. And so this video, for such a time as this, and as you know, there's so much news on right now about things that are happening in the world, and I do know that I don't normally watch the news, and for those of you who've known me for many years, you know that this is for many years. I might see something and catch up with something. Someone might post something on Facebook or LinkedIn, and I might notice something's going on and then look into it, but I don't actually choose to watch the news regularly, and that's been through university days, so it's been quite a bit of time, and probably even high school days. So yes, news is not something that I really like to get engrossed in, and it's because I know that oftentimes things are slanted, or there's too much emotion and passion and not necessarily helpful energies that are shared through media. So, and I'll say news media, but of course there's also useful information too, and it's always about that discerning eye when we're looking at anything or reading anything. Yet, today I was reflecting, and have been, as I said, for days, about this journey to Bali, so my calling to Bali or Indonesia, and how wonderful it's been to be here in this space where I've really not been able to work, and though I came with an intention to work, the calling was just go. And so I'm here, and I am listening and doing this every single day, that I do not take any steps. So even if you're seeing me go to Thailand, which I need to do once, I guess, every 6 months to maintain my visa, if I am going there, even that is all based on the timing that's guided to me through the universe or God. And so I wanted to make sure that you know that this isn't something that's just happened in Indonesia. In Canada, in the few years, I'll say about 5 years before I left, I was already working with grief recovery, and grief recovery was something that I felt was a very good addition to my practice, which was focused on cancer patients and cancer healing, and then family healing, and that sort of idea. And then of course I was also nicely introduced to Vedic principles and teachings, and in this time here I have also reflected and contemplated and studied and learned more about various religions, and I have done that all my life too. And so it's almost like things are being refreshed in this mind that carries a lot of information. And not only, as you know, I now believe in past lives, though I have never believed in past lives before, but it's only through an awareness of this experience, this soul's experience. So in that, I do recognize that, wow, the journey was very much about taking care of people, and I still feel like that same energy flows through me. It's such a blessing, and it certainly flows back to me too. And of course, these Epstein files came up. And the reason I was somehow drawn to something that came up on my computer, as happens for me, was Deepak Chopra and Epstein files. And I thought, oh, you know, I'm now mentally preparing for the time that I'm coming back to Canada, which will be sometime soon. I don't know when still waiting for guidance for each step. But for now, I can tell you that I thought, oh, you know, once I come back to North America, this has been talked about for some length of time, so I should at least have some awareness of what is it about. And I can tell you honestly that I thought there might have been some money laundering, and of course we were probably seeing that there's some of that too. Yet the main core of that investigation, or those investigations, and many investigations and comments and expressions from various people who have had various experiences, has really been not easy to see. And I was so shocked when I actually saw that. And I have to tell you that this is, again, not like Hanifa's mind usually, but I was glued to little details, many details, and just so not happy about what I was learning and understanding. And I guess many of these files are so long ago, and yet it's only coming to light now. And I have to tell you, there's been such a joy in understanding and seeing that people have had a voice through the years, and yet it's been, what, about 25 years since many of these voices are finally being heard today, which I am so happy about, and just shows us that when we're doing something that is good intentions and it's from divine energy. I spoke about this before I was leaving Canada for several, I'll say, whether conferences or lectures or presentations. I talked about communication. I talked about some Vedic principles. I joined a Gita group. I wrote a book about Gita for the Healthcare Guru. And I think we're all gurus, so we're all teachers. And so we teach each other through our actions, our thoughts, our words, our actions. And I do know that even when I wrote that book, still in Canada, I will say that the first poem always stands out to me because it was focused on truth. Then I came here, and as I was planning to come here again, so after my first visit, and I decided to come again to Indonesia, and very soon after, I know that I was really very much engrossed in writing poetry. And there were some poems that were so meaningful to me, and I know that they've resonated with me and stay in my mind, in my awareness. And I always feel that this is part of my calling. It's for those things to be so strong. So truth, there were things about the earth, and there was definitely things about vulnerable, I'll say, girls that I had written about. Yet today I definitely do not distinguish between girls and boys. I definitely feel that both have been in vulnerable situations, and not only with Epstein files that we're seeing, but I want you to know that this is a global phenomenon as we're seeing through those files. Yet at the same time, it's not limited to that. So some people are already talking about this. I wanted to mention it too, that this happens in the healthcare world. This happens in families where people will take vulnerable or advantage of someone vulnerable. This happens in relationships, marriages, and some of us have gone through those experiences, and some of you might have too. All I want to make sure is this is not just a Hollywood phenomenon. This is not just big money phenomenon. This is not one country or another. This is the world phenomenon. This is a wave of energy that gets stronger when greed and power are focused on rather than compassion, love, and authentic care. And so I look at, wow, when I was in Canada, certainly my entire naturopathic practice has been this way, and perhaps this is what Hanifa's mind has always focused on anyways, or I believe I have, or this mind believes it has, that more often than not, it's through care and compassion and a desire to understand. And I recognize that, wow, even my poetry was also reflecting this. So today, for such a time as this, I thought I would share one of the most important poems that I had written before I left Canada for this trip, which really resonates with me. And I can tell you that it's not that I hadn't seen cases. I did while I was working in Canada, but this wasn't my focus. So I'd seen many affected, vulnerable people in breaking relationships, for sure. I had also seen dishonest communication between dating relationships. I'd seen dishonesty within families, and many of us have experienced various forms of all of these. And today I wanted to start with this poem to read to you rather than reading another quotation. This poem was called Trauma Eyes. And again, some of you know that much of the poetry that I wrote right before coming to Bali for this extended trip was actually felt like it was a divine guidance, something flowing through me rather than this mind creating the words. So I thought I'd share this poem that definitely came in that time, and yet is for such a time as this. It's called Trauma Eyes. She can't look at me through eyes of despair, as speaks of the man who tousled her hair. She loved how he looked at her beautiful form, and she wondered how this had become norm. She loved just how easy to reach him by phone, but soon would be time, no answer, alone. And each would now search for who would be next and respond eagerly to some fresher text. Sharp pain in her heart. Was this help she received? For numerous years she silently grieved. But what could she do? Her family was poor, so put on a smile and trauma endured. Has finally found strength, the courage to meet. I welcome her gently on cobblestone street, assuring her kindly to trust safety net. I'm holding for her this day that we've met. Lifting head slowly, her hopeful eyes shine as both feel clear presence, the strength of divine. And boy, I can tell you, I have never worked on a cobblestone street, so interesting that I am definitely in a place that has many cobblestone streets. So when that poem came out, I certainly felt like, oh, is that Europe that's coming to my mind? Should I be going to Europe? Yet, of course, we have cobblestone everywhere, and it's just a street, and it's again everywhere. It's a reflection of vulnerable people who go through an experience and can't even talk about it. And then we are seeing that people who actually have a voice to talk about it are often not heard. And I certainly have experienced times, not what these young ladies have gone through, but that have definitely been spaces where I've needed friends and really have appreciated friends who have been there for me in those times. And certainly family and friends have been fantastic, but I will say, I think with friends we can be so much more open and easy because we're not worried about creating pain on our own families. And again, this is part of the art of communication, to be able to express and to discern who can handle. Now, I want you to also know that I have been regular with meditation, as many of you know too. I have been regular with meditation for, I'll say, about 30 years, but in the past 7-ish years, I will say that I've been very consistent, and in those 30-ish years, I can't say that it was every single day, and of course I did a lot of prayer, but I can say that meditation was on and off, and now, for the past 7 years, probably 2 or 3 times a day I'm meditating, and this is the space of listening. And today, I had such a beautiful experience of reflecting on a meditation yesterday with a friend from Ontario, and it was online, it was on WhatsApp, and of course a really trustworthy friend and really meaningful soul on this journey of life with me. And I can tell you she is a very wise mind and also very open-minded, and I love the fact that I don't normally get visions or messages or awarenesses during meditation, and certainly not with another person. So it's usually during my contemplative time that I actually get some message or universal awareness that flows through me, and then I contemplate and reflect on what's received. But this actually happened during that call and that meditation, and I have to tell you that it was wonderful because, again, the last couple of days had been so not easy with learning about these Epstein files, and of course wars and bombings and lots of people hurt, and then of course banks and so many things. You know it, I know it, so much is going on right now. Yet I do know that this mind was very much focused on babies and children, and the injustice and the cruelty and the unfairness with powers and leaders, and recognizing that, yeah, that's up on the front news. It's in so many articles and so many YouTube videos, and there are so many people all over the world that would be watching that and thinking, why isn't my story shared that way? And the truth is, this is happening all around the world, and you might know this too. Certainly out here, you might be familiar with things that have happened or have been known to happen in Russia, in the Philippines, in Thailand, in Indonesia. And so it's no different here than in North America, and I know the same thing is happening in Europe too. Anyways, without going into all of that, I want you to know that this wonderful message that I got, I have heard and read about there are some soulless people in this world. And every time I've seen that, and having had experiences with some people who have not been very kind, I would sometimes think, oh, that's what a soulless person is like, because there's no conscience of what actions are being taken. Yet the message I had was literally this flood of babies, young energy souls, these souls that were speaking to me. And it was, I always know that souls are always participating with us, especially in our shared intentions for helping the world. And so at the end of this meditation, I got this flood of messages from these young souls which said, we're okay. We did that. We came into this life for that purpose, that for such a time as this. I just think that's so beautiful. And I can tell you, it was such a relief. It's, again, one can say that if someone is being tortured and then finally gets the freedom of being out of the physical body, one can think that there's a freedom or a relief in that. Yet there's such that feeling of, oh my goodness, someone had their whole life in front of them, or they're so young and this is so not right. Yet having this message, and I can tell you, I'm sure that some people could think that, oh no, that's just Hanifa's mind wanting to believe something, so she created this. I don't believe so. And if my mind created it, I thank the universe for allowing that to come through this mind. I do feel that this was a message from the universe, from divine souls that were helping me remember that we're all here for a purpose, and some of the purposes that people come for are very different than we would ever imagine. Yet having that confirmation has totally lightened me today. So I am grateful for the person through which we shared that experience and in that meditation. And I'm so grateful for all the souls that are coming through right now too, because they're also reminding me of other things that I'm learning and practicing. I mean, we only get to put into action what we're learning when we're putting it into action. And, I would think that, oh, I can't work. But putting into action is living what we learn. And this is what I believe that all spiritual traditions or religions actually do encourage, that we don't just talk about being a good person, we actually are a good person. And then we can only reflect on ourselves of how good are we being in terms of our thoughts, words, and actions. And I know that I speak about these things regularly. I truly believe them. And so I've recently had communication with the university in India that I had done that lecture for, or podcast for, a webinar with, whatever, 3 years ago. And what a wonderful feeling. And that was all about communication. And then, of course, spirituality and healthcare is still on my mind. And at the same time, I recognize that it's not just in healthcare, it's in every field, every discipline. We can start bringing back something that grounds us, that pulls us away from these egoic attachments of stuff and greed and harshness, and come back to gentleness and truth and kindness. But I thought it was so interesting because I was speaking to another friend who's in New Mexico. I really wanted to check in on how he was doing because of so many things happening in the States, and it was such a wonderful conversation. And occasionally, he's been probably one of the strongest supporters of my poetry. And he'll occasionally remind me about a poem, or I will remind him about a quotation. Or again, these are the things that we talk about, and it's quite nice. But I can tell you, he said, oh, let me read you something that's been right here beside my computer. I'll read you something. I said, okay, great. So he started reading this poem. I'll read it to you. It's called Uplifting Friend. It says, I cry to you freely. Do you feel my pain? Life scratches at skin. I don't feel the same. The wounds are quite deep. They'll look like some art. The hurt that I feel is deep in my heart. You lift me up and comfort my pain. Remind that my efforts are never in vain. You lift up my shoulders and carry on back when see from awareness this confidence lacked. It's playful and giving, does not even ask. A kindness flows freely behind humble mask. My fears are so lightened, discomfort subdued. I can handle all burdens when I turn to you. The solace you give, so easy to find, and always reminding, won't leave me behind. You walk at my side, at step with my pace, so gently you guide me to a healing space. It feels so uplifting, the space of pure love, a perfect companion. For my hand, you are a glove. And I said, wow, that's so beautiful. And that last line, I actually recognized. I mean, it sounds like something I would have written. And I said, so who wrote this poem? And he said, you did. And I love that. It's I can say that I love it because I am recommending that people remember we are not our bodies, we are not our minds. And I do not want this mind to claim that, oh, those were my words. So if someone else is reading this to me and I hear it and I think they're wonderful words, I love that this mind did not say, oh, those are my words. I love that it's just so natural, that it's such a beautiful reminder of this is what I think is divine energy through all of us. We have this ability to look at divinity and recognize that it flows through each of us, and then help each other remember the strength from each of us. Today, I want you to remember that for such a time as this, remind yourself of the divine energy. My next few videos will talk more about this. I wish you a fantastic day or night ahead, and I hope you remember, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day or night, everyone.